welcome to Season 2, Episode 67 of One Man's Opinion. Today I am reviewing the national tour of Hadestown, currently making a run along the northeastern United States. Hadestown is the hit musical with music, lyrics, and book written by Anais Mitchell, developed and directed by Rachel Chavkin, and choreographed by David Neumann, and is a retelling of the Greek tragedy of Orpheus and Eurydice.
All aboard!
Way down, Hadestown, way down underground.
Why is it so hot down here, hotter than a crucible? It ain't right and it ain't natural.
Lover, you were gone so long. Lover, I was lonesome. Think of it as my desire for you.
Show the way so we can see. Show the way the world can be. If you can do it, so can she. If she can do it, so can we. Show the way.
I'm coming away from me.
Show the way.
I hear the walls repeating, the falling of our feet, and it sounds like drumming.
Show the way.
And we are not alone.
Show the way.
I hear the rocks and stones, echoing our song. I'm coming.
I'm coming, wait for me. I hear the walls repeating, falling of my feet, and it sounds like drumming. And I am not alone. I hear the rocks and stones echoing my song. I'm coming.
There have been many retellings of this story with different initial motivations on how Orpheus and Eurydice meet and fall in love and how she ends up in the clutches of Hades. In this instance, Orpheus is the son of a muse and a songwriter, while Eurydice is a poor woman who has journeyed to the village he lives in. The two fall in love and she inspires him to write a song that may bring balance to the world again, as Hades has been holding his wife Persephone in Hades, or Hadestown, longer and longer each year. The agreement between the two of them was that it was only supposed to be 6 months out of the year. And Persephone, who brings life to the terrestrial world as we know it, when she's gone, it causes fall and winter, and then when she returns, spring and summer occur. But Hades has been holding her longer and longer each year, so spring and fall no longer exist, and all we have is a brief summer period and a very long winter. While Orpheus is consumed with his songwriting, Eurydice is tempted by Hades, played by Matthew Patrick Quinn, who tempts her to come down to Hadestown, where she would never suffer from hunger and cold again. Near death, she agrees. Of course, this would mean that Eurydice is technically dead at this point. Upon hearing of his beloved's death, Orpheus must travel down to Hades and see if he can rescue her. There are some fantastic elements about Hadestown. I love the idea to set Hadestown in a hot, sweaty Bourbon street of around the 1920s. It feels grimy, seedy, and decrepit, and I love it. This setting allows the employ of a mix of folk and jazz music, a score full of dazzling energy, and a musical atmosphere that matches the visual aesthetic. There is a not-so-subtle comparison between Hades and the Trump administration regarding Hades' desire to have a wall built around Hadestown to purportedly protect his people, but in reality he's just using them to his means. It's interesting because when this plot point was created by Chavkin and Mitchell, Trump was nowhere on the radar when it came to being a political figure, but that's an insanely coincidental representation of life imitating art, and though unintentional, keeps Hadestown remarkably prescient. What problems I have with Hadestown lie in the book, particularly with characterizations and motivations. Orpheus, who in the classic Greek style would be the hero character of the story, is horribly milquetoast and lacks any classic Greek hero traits. Yes, he travels down to Hades to rescue Eurydice, but that part of the story doesn't feel terribly important when it should. And because of that, there's nothing inspiring about him. The love story is sweet, but when Eurydice is near death, he's nowhere to be found. When it comes time to motivate the dead to rise up against Hades, he's hardly inspiring, because he hasn't had that hero journey that gives an audience the kind of hope and expectation that he is going to succeed in what he's doing. Now, I saw this on Broadway with the original cast and Reeve Carney as Orpheus, whom I didn't like at all. But I will say that J. Antonio Rodriguez, who performed the nights that I was in attendance and is an understudy for the role, had much more developed acting choices. I don't necessarily agree with all the choices because the character still looked and behaved uninspiring. But after seeing both performances, I kind of feel that that is a directing or writing choice, not an acting choice. Another issue is Hades' motivation regarding Eurydice. Initially, he brings her down, claiming he wants someone who appreciates what he does running his namesake underworld. The problem is that this plot point is completely dropped after he has his way with her after bringing her there. It has no bearing for him, Persephone, Orpheus, or Eurydice after that point about halfway through the first act. Eurydice doesn't bring it up. Persephone doesn't care what her husband does because she is in a perpetual state of drunkenness and despair because Hades is holding her there much longer than she wants. At this point, I haven't spoken much on the acting aside from J. Antonio Rodriguez, who, all things considered, was fine. This is because three of the primary roles were played by understudies, and I can't make any comments on the regular performers for not only Orpheus, but Eurydice, who is played by understudy Belen Moyano, and Persephone, who is played by understudy Lindsay Hales. Though they were the understudies, both gave solid performances. Hales, in particular, had charisma as Persephone, especially performing Living It Up on Top, and Moyano gives Eurydice a tender, wide-eyed innocence that is rather endearing. Aside from having one of the most awesome beards I've ever seen on stage, Matthew Patrick Quinn is perfectly malevolent as Hades, with meticulous movements across the stage and his basso profundo voice reverberating across the theater. Of course, I can't talk about the cast and not talk about Nathan Lee Graham, who plays the winged Hermes, who is not only Orpheus's guide, but ours as well. Nathan Lee Graham has a wonderful smoothness in his delivery with a slight devilish glee in it, knowing that we're not going to get exactly what we think we're going to get. Now, I know I've given a bit of negative critique toward the book of Hadestown and the characterization of Orpheus in particular, but overall the musical is still enjoyable and recommended. Its atmospheric interpretation of the myth is rich in style and engaging. But I am only one man's opinion, so be sure to leave yours in the comments below. If you want to see Hadestown, I'll leave a link in the description where you can see upcoming dates and locations and order tickets. You can support my channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing, and click the notification bell to be alerted to future reviews. My next review will be The Art of Burning at Hartford Stage. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you at the theater.